everyone has signed in. If not, please remember to do so later.
Need to sign in?
It's being circulated.
Okay, it's circulating. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I have the pleasure tonight to introduce two friends, both first responders. Mike, of course, and his wife Lori are members of the Historical Society. They have two children, Brian and Kimberly, and 3 grandchildren. And Fred is married to Sue. He has 2 daughters, Stacy and Heidi, who is a state trooper. And they have 1 grandson, Eli. And I do not trust my car to anyone but Fred. I'll let you take over.
Okay, I think everybody can hear that. When I was asked about doing this, I thought, oh, that'll be pretty neat, that'll be easy, and it really wasn't. Let me find my little blue arrow. Talked about the history of the West End, and I thought, well, I knew that Eston Dockey built the garage, and I knew my dad bought it from Emery Markle, and he sold it to Fred Dill. But other than that, I wasn't too sure of times and dates. And so although I had some, where are we going to go with that? Although I had some knowledge of the history, I didn't have the confirmation of those dates. Marilyn gave me a newspaper article. I went to the internet, and I also talked to a relative of the Dockeys, Barb Dockey, and Don Markle Jr., who would have been a grandson of Emery. And a lot of it really didn't match. The news article said that Eston built a garage in 1946, and he opened for business in November of 46. That is not exactly what it looked like. That's when my dad had it in 62. I just kind of crossed off the signs. It's very, very close, but there's been a couple of additions. There wasn't a Coke machine or a bench out front. But one of the things that I did find out is that Eston Dockey's brother, Jesse Edmund Dockey, was also involved, but nobody knows to his exact degree of involvement. The newspaper article stated that Eston opened and operated the garage for 4 years. Well, that would have been to 1950. The second part to the Dockey ownership, this is a little, I'll get it, was in 1954, Linwood Dockey, Eston's son, took over the operation of the West End garage. His wife is Barb Dockey. Her and my dad actually are first cousins. So it was kind of nice to get to talk to her. She's down in Florida, and we swapped some old family stories. But she told me that when Linwood came home from the service, he took over the garage, and she thought it was in maybe 50 or maybe 52 or maybe 54. But I found his discharge information on the internet, and he wasn't discharged from the service until 1954, so that's what I went with. Linwood added the side bay and put a lift. It was a hydraulic in the ground lift. The old pole came up out of the ground, and he also added the mobile gasoline sales. In 1960, Emery Markle bought the garage. And he didn't have it too long. He died actually on July the 4th of 1962. And while he was running it, and he became ill, his son left the service and actually put the trailer, that would have been Don Markle Sr., and moved there with his family. And his son, Don Markle Jr., told me that he was a little disappointed because he came home with the idea that he would take over from his father and become the owner of the West End garage. But his mother sold it to my dad, and he didn't even know it. Okay, so Don said, I'm not sure my dad ever really got over that. And I could understand that. So, again, in 1960, it went to Henry, and then 62, my dad bought the garage. I was telling Sue earlier, I thought this was going to be very, very easy, and then I started looking for pictures and documentation, and it became a much tougher project. One of the things I did find and came up with was, you can see what the garage looked like when my dad bought it, just like when Henry had it. The Daimler farm is on the left side of that picture, and they just had taken down their old orchard. And then I started thinking about, I don't know what to do about that squeal. I started thinking about my dad, and he was very, very excited to have the garage. But what brought him there? What drove him to that? What do we do? Okay, I think that will help. So I thought, well, what drove Jack to become the owner of the West End Garage? I found out and had a bunch of things. Is that still loud enough, do you think? Yeah. Rich, we good? Yeah. Okay. Jack was born in 1929, and he actually grew up where Lynn and Peggy Taylor live right now. I don't know if I don't think he was born in that house, but right across the street from the firehouse, that's where he was raised. He had a very, very strong work ethic from a very young age. And I think that was part of growing up in the Depression. He worked hard, but he also liked to have fun. And for those of you who knew my dad, he always said, work hard, play hard. And he lived that his whole life. Work hard, play hard. When he was 14 years old in 1943, he became the very first garbage man in Elizabethville. He had a horse and a wagon and a couple buddies, Arnold Lebo and Joe Winger, and they would make arrangements to go pick up garbage, and it went up to what is still the borough dump, halfway up in Elizabethville Mountain. So he was starting at a very young age of 14. His next job was when he was 15. It's George Eversole Stone Quarry. We used to know it as Fairler, Middle Creek, and a bunch of different names on top of Eagle Mountain. He went up at the age of 15 and joined the loading crew in 1944. And some of you will recognize some of the names in this picture. Let me see here. First of all, there's Jack. Third row, Harry Unger was my school teacher in high school. That was my grandfather Ab's, his brother Jake. Abe Rao was, where's Abe? Right there's Abe Rao. He was a contractor in Elizabethville. In fact, he was the lead contractor in 1958 when they built the fire station on Market Street. So, a lot of history. The guy right there would have been Lynn Keller's neighbor, Hezzy Kiter. On the block behind you. So there's a lot of history. In 1947, my dad married my mother, Doris. Doris was from Halifax. My dad was 18 years old when he got married. And they lived in an apartment above the Buller's grocery store here in Elizabethville. A little later, they moved to that ground floor apartment. I came along in 1949, and my sister came along in 1951. And what I remember is that my father worked for Gulf Oil on the turnpike. They still have those service plazas where you stop and get gas and some food. In the old days, that was a Gulf gas station, and you could get repairs done as well. And most of them all had Howard Johnson restaurants. So my dad worked for Gulf Oil on the turnpike, but again, very, very industrious and always looking to make a buck. My dad had a silver dollar, minted on his birthday. His father gave it to him, and he still had it when he passed away. He hung on to that one. That was very important to him. He worked for Eddie Mueller at the garage. He'd go help him pick up produce, bring it back to the store. He helped him over at the Wertz Crossroads auction, because Ed used to have a stand over there. Sometime Clark Miller's Dairy was here in Eville, and he was short a driver. My dad had ended up delivering milk part-time. And he also worked at a gas station as a mechanic at 6th and McLean in Harrisburg. He was doing all those part-time jobs at the same time he worked for Gulf Oil. And he also called square dances all through Upper Dauphin County, especially a lot of them over at the Gratz Community Center. That was kind of cool. I can remember I was 3 or 4 years old, and he took me along once in a while. And he said he didn't have to worry about me because all the ladies thought I was kind of cute being really small, and they were teaching me to square dance and help take care of me. So we were both happy. In 1954, my dad moved to Mechanicsburg because he got tired of driving back and forth to work on the turnpike. And we lived in Mechanicsburg for 1 year. I was on the backside of being 4 years old when we moved there. And we weren't there quite a year when Gulf told my dad, "You're probably not going to have a job. We're giving up our contract to be Gulf Oil on the turnpike, and somebody else is going to get it, and you're going to have to go look for a new job." So we moved back to Upper Dauphin County, and we moved to Millersburg, and my dad was looking for full-time employment. Where he ended up working was at Swell Wagon Company, and he worked their gas pumps and their lube rack, changing oil, changing tires, etc., because the mechanics at Swab stayed there forever. And although he just wanted to repair vehicles and be a mechanic, there was no openings at Swab's. But that's where he worked, and again, that industrious, he also worked part-time at the American Legion. He would tend bar and go in at night and clean the place and take care of the Legion. He also became very active in the fire department when he moved back, and in 1958, him and my mother, along with some other people, Warren and Les Wida, Bill Buffington, the funeral director, they started the first ambulance in Elizabethville in 1958. In 62, he purchased the garage, and he was a little short. He could get a mortgage, but not enough to cover everything he needed, and my grandfather felt that my dad had the work ethic that he needed, that my grandfather signed a note so my dad could buy the garage. One of the first things that happened, and again, some of you knew my dad, you always knew where my dad was coming from. Usually he was tactful, but not always, but one thing for sure, you did know where he was coming from and what was on his mind. And that didn't work well with him and the Mobil Oil representative. And about 3 weeks after my dad owned the West End garage, Mobil Oil was no longer the supplier of gasoline and automotive products. He fired them. He said under the contract, as a new owner, he could get rid of them. And henceforth came Esso. So the original hours when he first bought it in 62 were 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. 6 days a week, 7 to 9. He did later on adjust his Saturdays that we got to quit at 6 instead of 9. Just 7 to 6 instead of 7 to 9. And people ask him, no gas sales on Sunday? My dad's thought was, I need to have time for me and for my family. And if I can't make it in 6 days, one more day is not going to make a difference. And that was his philosophy, and he did that. He used services our salesman. Everything he did, you saw Jack Wertz proprietor, because he was so proud. My dad left school before he graduated in 12th grade. He never totally finished his high school career. So he was proud that he, without that diploma, owned his own business. And everything he put his name on, West End Garage, Jack Wertz proprietor, he was so proud of that. And he also put on everything, service is our salesman. He said, if you give good service, people will come back, they will trust you, and they will be good customers. He was very, very, very demanding. When I worked for him, I got paid less than everybody else who worked there, but he demanded more from me. And that used to really make me mad. And today, as an adult, I'm kind of happy that he did that. It taught me some values, taught me some loyalty, some faithfulness, those types of things. So it worked out fairly well, and his thing was, let's make this right. We'd get to wash a car. You had to wash it Jack's way. You cleaned all the insides and you emptied the ashtrays in those days, but you wet the car and you had to start at the top and you worked your way down. Because if you worked your way up, you were going to end up rinsing dirty water over a clean car, and that was a no-no. You were also going to use more water. And if you used more water, you weren't going to make as much money. So those were the types of things that Jack talked about and held us responsible for. Reliability, accountability, efficiency, presentation. Eventually, my dad leased uniforms, and if you worked for my dad, you got a uniform to wear while you were at work. On Saturdays, everybody hated to get the late Saturday shift because we had to clean everything off the floor of the whole garage, wet it down with hot water, and use lye hot soap to scrub the floors and then rinse it off to see how much grease we could get rid of. Every Saturday, the whole garage. And everybody got involved. My mother on the left, my sister on the right, and it didn't matter if you said, I can't use hot soap, I can't do this, they gave them a paintbrush. So, had a great security system. Remember I said that the farm on the left was going out of business. They tore down an orchard. They had a purebred white German Shepherd named King, and the farmer asked my dad if he wanted him, and he said sure. And I'm not an animal person, but I loved that dog. It was a great dog. He had a crooked tail, and if an adult pulled at his tail, that dog would attack you. The children could hang on that dog, hang on his tail. Nah, that nothing, no problem. So evidently the tail got bent by an adult somewhere along the line. The dogs got very, very good care. They had good kennels, they got run, they were allowed to run outside, and every night they had a really nice, comfortable bed inside the garage. And every night my dad went down and put the dog in the garage, and the neighbors could hear the dog if anybody came around the garage, and that was the first security system. And it was followed up by another one named Chief, and King started teaching Chief, and then Chief started teaching the third dog, Charlie, and if they weren't going to do it correctly, you can see my dad would get involved in teaching them how to be a watchdog. Promotions were kind of cool. There were all kinds of promotions. Again, if you take a look at some of these, West End Garage, J.A. Wertz, proprietor, services, our salesman. Let me see here. Oop, wrong knife. I still have my West End Garage knife. I still have put a tiger in your tank glass. You could also get and if you bought so much gasoline, you were able to get a glass for like 25 cents, or depending if you bought enough that they gave it to you. You could get a pitcher with that. Keychains, yardsticks. So yardsticks were very popular back in the early 60s. You didn't have they didn't ask me, I probably would have gave them one for back at the special place on the wall. I had one or two. One of the cool ones was the put a tiger in your tank. They had the tiger tail. And everybody says, well, that was kind of cool because put a tiger in your tank, and that was just a neat thing. In reality, and for those of you that are mechanics and have been around car sales, especially back in the late 60s and late 50s and early 60s, even into the early 70s, you couldn't always find a gas tank where you filled the gas cap. Sometimes it was hidden under a license plate. Sometimes it was a funny looking little door. There was actually some that you actually turned a little knob on the taillight and the taillight folded down. So Exxon said, not only will we put our name out there, we'll put our slogan out there, we're going to help our people pumping gas because they'll be able to find the fuel tank filler and save some time. So there was a lot of different stuff for that. Auto parts used to be, if you wanted parts, the parts people came to your place usually once a day. And you'd call your order in, and if the truck had already left, you had to go pick it up yourself. There wasn't shotgun delivery like today. So my dad wanted to put lots of parts in his store, and he did. But he found out one of the things that was wrong with that, and people don't understand this, is all small business. If at the end of the year you had a $10,000 inventory, and at the end of the next year you had a $15,000 inventory, you had to pay income tax on that additional $5,000 worth of inventory. So small businesses are the ones that really got hurt by that. And my dad would spend days at the end of every year manipulating and making sure his inventory was correct. And that was also a family project. So, he had extra projects. He sold strawberries. When he bought the place, there was a big corn patch out back, and he turned that into strawberries. That was a thing all unto itself. But he also sold Christmas trees. We went to Perry County every December, and his very first dump truck, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, we'd fill that thing up with Christmas trees and bring it back and sell them there at the garage so you could get gas and a Christmas tree all in one stop. And he also plowed snow. In 1972, Esso changed to Exxon. And once again, the small business, and he had to do upgrades to stay in the business. And so 10 years into business, Exxon said, if you want to keep our contract, you have to change the windows in your building, you have to brick your building, no more cinder block, no more siding, everything has to be, you have to brick it, you have to do all this work, including changing out signage. So, had another new expense just to stay in business. Still happens, right, Fred? Yeah. Trying to keep moving here. There's my little blue. There it is. My dad was a tool and gadget guy. He had an early 1950 Studebaker dump truck. I'm not sure exactly what year that was. That is not the exact truck, but that is one like it. It was light blue. I was about 12, maybe 13 years old when I learned to drive. He made me learn on the dump truck. He said, if you can learn on that and drive that, we're going to teach you that you have to double clutch it because the throws are so close. And if you can drive that, you'll be able to drive anything. Hauled coal for the garage, hauled Christmas trees. And when he did get a call where somebody needed a tow, he went back into the car, lift it up, have a chain running on the dump with a padded pipe. And he'd hook that to the car, and as the dump would come down, the front of the car would come up. That was his first record. His second one was a mid-40s Chevy. He bought that used from a garage out in Highspire. That thing was so short and snub-nosed, you could let the clutch out fairly slow in first gear and lift those front wheels right off the ground. Then he went to a Jeep. You can see the snowplow apparatus on the front. And then eventually he went to the Dodge Power Wagon, and he was still plowing snow. And that's pretty much the only pictures of the records that he had that I had available to me. The other thing I would get ready, Fred, you're sitting up. That was his original purchase, 1 acre of ground when he bought from Markle the garage, and Don Markle Sr. moved the trailer because that was his. Wrong direction, sorry about that. He then bought the 2 acres from the old diver farm next to him. He said that someday he thought he might have a project for over there. And several years after that, he bought the acre behind the garage from the Lee Phillips farm, and ended up with the 4 acres of property at that area. Everybody said to my dad, I don't understand why you live uptown and rent. And you own your own business down there with all that land around it. And this, again, this goes back to who Jack was. When we moved back to town in 1958, the upper house in the left was a double house out on East Main Street, in fact a half a block up the street. And we lived there and rent, until 1969. We moved in, not me, I was away in the military. Moved into, this was, on the house under it there was Dr. Lysel's dentist office. This picture, they enclosed the balcony, that was an outdoor balcony up there. But in 1968, they moved to that apartment. In 1968, he also bought the materials, and him and some friends built a picnic pavilion back where the old orchard used to be on the Diver farm. And there were so many picnics there. The fire company had picnics, my dad had picnics, my grandfather had his birthday party there. There was easily 100 people at that picnic for his birthday party, to the point where it became known as the West End Picnic Grove, and my dad had cards made and started giving those out. So put your name on it. And then in 1971, he built a pool, 20 by 40 in ground. He bought a kit from Crystal Pools, got some buddies. He had a contractor dig the hole, and friends and family built the pool. And in 72, he built his house. So people said, Jack, that's so stupid. Why would you do that? He said, that house cost the most money, and that was going to strap me the hardest. Work hard, I do. Play hard, I did. I had a lot of fun having a lot of picnics for several years before I went into debt to have a house. And then I had a lot more fun with all my friends swimming in the pool when we were at the picnics before I went into debt for my house. So if I did the house, I wouldn't have had the others. So his mind was work hard, play hard. So that's how it worked. In 1970 and in 71, my dad I came home from Vietnam for 2 years in 1970, and my dad, I was a diesel and a heavy equipment mechanic, and Navy sent me to school for that, and my father just thought I had to go into his business and become a diesel mechanic and start working on larger equipment, and that would have been oil and water, especially at that time. And for 2 years, he tried to talk me into it, and he couldn't. And his idea was that maybe I would finally take over, and it just didn't happen. In 85 or 86, they were going to pass a new law about underground storage tanks. And my father was told that you probably want to get a jump on this and put these new underground storage tanks in now while the cost is cheaper if you want to stay in the gas business. And he thought about it, and eventually he did. He loaned the money and stayed in the gas business. So his final layout looked like that. You see the house on the left, the pool in the back, the picnic pavilion, the garage. The first trailer was one that they put there. My grandparents, my mother's parents lived there. They were quite elderly and needed some help, and so they were put in there, so they were close and we could take care of them. My dad thought that was pretty cool. He actually got a second trailer and put in there that he leased out to people. So that was what it looked like when my father sold it to Fred. So, Fred, I'm going to surprise you a little. I put 4 slides in here that you don't know about. So, I think that Jack wrote some caveats into the sales agreement when he sold to Fred. And those, as I see it, would have been this. Some things stay the same. Jack and his grandson Brian went with Jack everywhere he could on that record, and he called it the hook, even to the point where he had his own coveralls and he was good to go. And now here you can see Fred's teaching his grandson Eli not just to go along, but how to work the rollback. The Wertz family, if you think about history, in the upper left corner is my grandfather Abs, and that little guy is my dad Jack. Abs in the fireman's uniform. All the way on the other side is my dad Jack and me. Almost a generational picture, the same. Jack was the fire chief, I was the fire chief, my son was the youngest lieutenant our fire department ever had, and then he moved to Littlestown. But you can see there's the 3 of us. My wife and my mother were also active. They were EMTs, ran on the ambulance, and I just didn't have a very good picture, so I'm sorry about that. Look at that, some things stay the same. Fred Dill's family and the fire company. Fred's the fire chief. There he is taking his grandson trick-or-treating in one time. Here he is teaching him how to use a fire hose. In the upper right is his daughter Heidi, the state trooper, is also a certified firefighter, and her husband below, Aaron Shale. And in the middle is, I think, one of the coolest pictures where Heidi was in interior fire attack and came out and was talking to her father, and somebody snapped a pretty cool picture. So you can see some things stay the same. In the mid-70s, Reliance Hose Company went into the rescue work, and the very first rescue truck was, I can't read that, what's it say, $17,000?
Yes.
$17,000. The women worked on our ambulance. They weren't firefighters in those days, but you can see all the rescue training on the left was done at the West End Garage, included the fire crew and the ambulance crew. On the right side is, since 1989, when Fred bought it until now, the fire crew still does all their rescue training, pretty much all the rescue training at the West End Garage. However, their piece, a little lighter, cost, what was that? $508,000. So that is a little difference. And, Fred, it is your turn. Stick this in your pocket. Just on your head. And I'll go on your selection. I mess around with computers a lot, and Fred doesn't, so I'm going to sit here and push the button for him to make his job a little easier.
Good evening. Well, Mike covered a lot of material. Before I got the garage, I started at River Drive, Sunoco, down Front Street in Harrisburg in '72, right before Hurricane Agnes hit. So we had an interruption there. But from there I went to Engle Ford, which was at that time north of Millersville. It was a former Shep Schaefer place. Spent 10 years there, I see a couple people here from down there. And while I was there, I heard about West End Garage being for sale. So we went ahead with that. And that was May of 1989. And you can see when I got it, I still had Jack's wrecker, the old Dodge, the donkey he called it. It was quite a truck. And over the years, we had to upgrade things. And there you can see on the right where I started adding the new section on, which is at this time where the alignment bay is. And we upgraded a lot of equipment, computerized wheel balancing, put in another electric lift on the original part of the building, went to 2 inspection mechanics, and the third bay was, like I said, where the alignment equipment went, and also an additional office and storage space. And I kept the old wrecker for a number of years, but we needed to upgrade because of the cars were changing such. You couldn't hook them up with a sling anymore. You needed to put them on a rollback in order to be able to tow them. And there is the finished picture of the new section, and you can see this strip of new macadam there in front. That was right after the gas pumps were removed. And there you can see got rid of the one trailer because they needed the space for the new section. But there was still one trailer sitting there, and the gas pumps are still out front. Okay, there's the old Dodge, and that was my first rollback. That was a Dodge also. Actually belonged to Carl Zimmerman Plumbing. It was their truck. They got a new truck, and I bought the chassis off of Swab's and had the rollback bed put on it. And there on the right, the first truck, you don't see the whole thing, but that was the second rollback I had. It was a bigger one. And then 2 tow trucks, and my pickup on the other end. And this one here was actually the third rollback that I had. That was a much heavier, bigger truck. And there's my first new wrecker that I got. That was there, up there at the Gratz Fair, working the demo derby. I gave that up after a couple flat tires. And a couple of notable tow jobs over the years. The medic unit there gets a lot of comments. You know, upside down in the ice and snow, that was actually on a Thanksgiving Day. And the one on the bottom left was a competitor, loaded that car up and pulled out there to try and get out, and we can see it. Went down in. I pulled them out with my wrecker that I have now. And on the far right there is the cannon from out here in the park. We hold that out near Altoona to have it redone. And then the present roll back there with the mail truck on it, and the UPS truck out in Chippy Dam. There was a tree across the road at windshield level, and he hit it and put them down in there. Oh, what else do we have? Oh, yes, them things they call baskets from MI. That's at Halifax, at what they call Cozy Corner. Tractor trailer come around the corner, went up the hill, and then just slid right out of the back of the tractor trailer out the road. State police called out, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, go down there, load it up, and had to haul it up to Higgins. And dumpster on Main Street, imagine that.
Yeah.
How many dumpsters got hit on Main Street here in town?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Fred. Got a fat
I
finger.
might have bumped that. Yeah.
What'd they do? There we go. There we go.
And well, Pfeiffer's Fire Protection, that was up near Sacramento. Is, I don't know what his driver was doing, but he took off 2 telephone poles and laid it out in the field. And there on the bottom, that's some of the stuff you get into, you know, snow and ice, vehicles over banks, and all kinds of interesting things. And the replica, I was fire chief at that time. Went down, I forget the name of the place where that was down the road.
Why I'm missing? Down that area? Forget.
Somewhere more around the Reading area, I believe, yeah. And there on the bottom right, it's an old Cadillac fire truck, which I pulled out of an old shed for the guy that bought it. And far right is another antique fire truck that I hauled for swaths. And Mike's sitting here with this is 3 airplanes. This guy here thought he had an airplane, and that's up the other side of Hornings. He went down in there and rolled over, and we had to get it up over the guardrails. And that was a ultralight over there that I hauled. And then on the far right is a helicopter fuselage. They were going to take it and make a simulator out of it, but they needed to get it out of the storage shed and somehow get it loaded on a tractor trailer. So I loaded it on the rollback and backed up to the tractor trailer, and we pushed it into the tractor trailer. There's the record taking down the gas pumps.
What year was that?
This,
Yeah.
1992, I think. I had all the paperwork from when that was done, but it was around 92. It's like Mike said before, they come out with regulations. There's a picture a little further on of the gas tanks. There is the steel gas tanks. You wipe the dirt off, they were nice and shiny yet, but the government,
I didn't do that. You did
but
that.
the government says, you gotta change them. Take the steel out and put fiberglass in. Well, the gas business, to me, was not good enough to invest thousands and thousands of dollars. So let's get rid of it. And every time you're doing something, the bell rang. Ding, ding, somebody wants gas.
Yeah,
Can you
and
check my oil?
Fred, the other thing is you'd already paid for those tanks once when you bought the garage because
Yeah.
they were brand new almost
Yeah, that was
from my dad.
part of the sales price of the garage. I mean, you could read it, you can see the steel symbols on it, and the size of the hole right in front of the new addition. And there's some of the new equipment updates. You know, a lot of electric now, and the old way of changing tires. Bill probably remembers that. And that's another old one up there. And the far right one there, that's our newest machine to do run flats and everything like that.
What's a machine like that cost, Fred?
That one there was like $9,000 and some dollars
Change a tire.
to change a tire.
You gotta change a lot of tires to pay for it.
Yeah. And then people grumble, you want to charge them $10, $20 to change the tire. It's like towing a car, you know. Yeah, truck's free. That was the second lift we added in the bay that never had a lift. That was a big improvement. Ceiling was a little low, but it still worked. And on the top right is the newest alignment equipment. That's only like a year and a half old.
That's your inspections and emissions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm not
next,
seeing it.
yeah.
I can't see good enough. Yeah, that's the inspection, emissions inspection machine. And that was the second one, because after about I think it was 4 years or so.
I'm not doing it easy.
No, I keep bumping that dumb thing. I'll move it over there. The state says, well, you gotta update your emissions machine. $8,000 for a new emissions machine. And then on the bottom right is the snap-on scan tool, where we can get into all the computer systems. We can do some reprogramming of modules, but not the main computers. And you know, there's another $6,000. There's the alignment lift. There's the alignment computer. That was the third one of them that I had, because they keep saying after 5 years or so, oh, we can't update them anymore. But yet when they sell it to you, yeah, we can update that. Not so. And sort of how it looks there today with wood rack out front, which my daughter and son-in-law handle that. That's not my deal. And the wall is still there. The trailers are gone. And it's basically the West End garage today. It's pretty much my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I like the way your office is all the way over at the end there. I wonder why it's so far away.
There's a good reason. You want this one?
No, I don't. There's saw that on the internet, and my wife saw that. We just had to have that, and that's going to go up in my garage as a memento. But if anybody here was ever at a picnic and you did not get a membership card for the West End Picnic Group, I have some. And I still have some pencils that says West End Garage, Jack Wertz Proprietor, Services our Salesman. So if you'd like a souvenir pencil, there they are.
Do we have one here?
We went over there, definitely. Yes.
So there it is. This one I'm keeping though.
Any questions?
Anybody have questions?
You know, your mother was also a mechanic.
Yes.
Cause she had to work on one of my cars one time because she's the only one who could fit in.
It's funny what you remember. I mean, my dad's life revolved around three things: the garage, the fire department, and the family. I'm not sure what the exact order was, but that's how it worked. And when our daughter was born in 1975. Every morning my dad would get up and get ready to go to work, but he would go to the Washington Hotel. In those days, Horace and Ann had it, and then Frank Titus. And he would hit the coffee shop, and it was always the same, an egg sandwich and one coffee, because he didn't want to make us take Kimberly down to my mother's while we went to work, so he would swing around with a warmed up vehicle to take Kimberly to the babysitters, who was my mother. So we saw all those kinds of things. It was a pretty good family event. So
I remember pulling one of your vehicles in one time.
Not one
Man.
time, not one time, I had a
And
freak.
opened the hood, came
Oh.
face to face with a big fat cat.
Oh, Fred, you pulled our cars out of the ditch many times. It was our daughter that had the frequent tower car.
I think you got hung up on a big rock one time down at the
Oh, yeah.
209.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One of the highlights of my career at the West End was I got to take Doc Geibler's Model T and very carefully put it into the garage to put it on the lift so we could work on it. And my dad said, if you put a scratch on it, you're dead.